Hello, my name is Evan Manning, and this is my e-portfolio for my practicum at Fort Hays State University. Before I actually get into some of the individual things to show, I first want to thank all the people who I've talked to and bothered throughout this process in trying to hopefully be the best student I can be on the road to being the best administrator I can be in the future. And obviously, we've met dozens of people and made countless connections and relationships with people that I will thank individually, but a special thank you to the three people who helped me throughout this process more than any, which were Principal Jilka, Dr. Meyer, and Dr. Canizzo. Again, I can't thank you all enough and for sort of accepting me with open arms in this process. And I appreciate you and I thank you. Before getting into the individual activities, just some things that I wanted to have some more global takeaways through even the candidate info subsections. I really thought, again, sort of jumping through the hoops early is what it felt like when we very first started this process, and doing things like the goals video, the leadership philosophy, even having to re-put the plan of study that was already sort of in open access onto our actual e-portfolio, um, and create a resume from a time that seemed like it was way too early and that it wouldn't have mattered and that things would change and we would have a completely different resume by the time that we actually needed it. But this was just not true. I think, and again, maybe my experiences won't match everyone's, but I'm sure they match some. We were able to sort of take the things that we did in this class and for the practicum, and then really apply them so much faster than I ever would have thought. I know for me personally, having interviews at two different high schools in the area during this practicum, to have already had these things done early and sort of get the wheels turning and thinking about what it is that I would still need and how my thoughts would be about some things. And I'll talk about that later on in my secondary activities towards the end. But it was invaluable and allowed me to come across as a better candidate, and hopefully because I would actually be a better administrator in the future because of the things that we did. And I thought that even those sub portions in the candidate info were things that were really helpful, and that just going through those logistical areas was something that I appreciated. Going to the activities section specifically, again, the activity form I felt was really helpful. It was easy. I love having it where I could see it and manipulate it, and having the form actually in my own Google Drive as well was really helpful to go back and relate to and those different things that we did. So I thought that that was really great, and something that again, I'm thankful for to be able to not have to worry about how I was going to make sure I was matching every standard on my own or that time allocation. So I really thought that that was effective there. I'm going to go and end with my reflection just to make sure that gets out of the way. This is not my first go at this, as my time got out of hand the last couple. So looking at the reflection, I really felt like looking back after completing all of my hours and all of the individual portions of the e-portfolio, the level of sort of the robust nature of all the overarching things that we would have to know to be able to complete the e-portfolio and the different sub areas in secondary and elementary and district and like just the amount of differentiation in those things made it so much more well-rounded, and it was so much different than I thought, especially in the people that I talked to and what their experiences were. And the ability to not have it all be just a hands-on shadowing experience, I thought was really helpful. Again, at first, I think I kind of took it for granted that I wouldn't think it was as effective because I just wanted all of those direct one-on-one experiences with individuals. But one thing that I noted later on was if you were going to have all of these one-on-one connections with a singular like area and then you applied for a job somewhere else, how much of that is actually transferable and how much of that would you lose to not be able to make those cross comparisons? And I felt like the amount of, again, differentiated sort of assessment that we had allowed me to not only be a good candidate through going through the interview process at the Goddard School District when I'm already in, but also when I went through that process in the Mays School District as well. And I think that sort of looking back at how the entire situation went was really helpful. And I think that includes the portion of the program reflection where being able to go back and look at and be reminded about all the individual sort of modules and things that you went through and what was the most helpful and what relationships have you already met and what technological pieces do you now know and legal pieces, and through some of the case studies, ideas that could happen. I just think that again, even going through that process was really helpful for me to like sort of rewrap my brain around everything that I've accomplished, with a little bit of distance even towards the end. I thought that was really helpful and something that I was appreciative of. So going into the sort of meat of this, the actual highlights of my individual experiences, I'll go ahead and start sort of out of the classroom and go with the district first. So looking at the actual district highlights, again, special thank you, Dr. Canizzo, superintendent at the Goddard Schools, I guess assistant superintendent, but just an amazing person, an amazing educator, and someone that I was like blessed to be around, and was really thankful for that time and the things I got to learn from you. One of the first things that was sort of seen and that I was able to dive deeper into from a district level was the dyslexia timelines for the new KSDE standards that are coming out for next year, incorporating dyslexia and dyslexia testing into the way in which that we sort of teach and create reading environments for students. And I think being on sort of the cutting edge of that, or at least at the forefront of that, and being able to be a part of learning through and going through the different data as well as from the state data side allowed me to be a much more effective, hopefully future administrator, but also a much more effective teacher, specifically in English and language arts. And I thought that was something that I was happy about. And again, it was just one of those things where it sort of happens. We did this on a Monday. By I had done my own external research on a Wednesday, and by Friday we're having a department meeting talking about this. Everyone seems a little bit out of the blue that these things are happening, and to be able to sort of be a resource and say, well, here's actually what's being said, and here's when things need to be mandated, and here's the timeline. It just is amazing how, again, approachable the information is and how applicable it is to our everyday sort of teaching lives, and I'm grateful for that. Something else that I was really happy about is the opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting with Dr. Canizzo. We focused on a couple of different things, but the main point of focus here was the summer initiative. The Goddard School District, and I'm super proud to be a part of this in any way that I can be, with the summer initiative that they were going through with summer learning. It is such a huge undertaking, but to be able to have thousands of Goddard students be able to go to different camps, different learning opportunities, curriculum, advancement and enrichment and remediation, to not have to pay for transportation, to not have to pay for their food, to have it work in concert with the activities and the athletic side, so there's no overlap and not making students choose between the two avenues. It was just an amazing experience, and to be able to have those conversations with someone who was at the forefront, again, was not only amazing and made me feel super happy to be a part of the Goddard schools, but also, again, when questions would come up, more logistical questions, I was able to sort of know more through that background with the communication at the district level, and to be able to be a go-between in a way between the district and individual teachers in the building. It's something that I never thought I would be doing, especially not so fast. The next activity was a district board meeting. And again, something that I think that we should all have to do. I'm just amazed by how much I learned through one board meeting, and learning sort of behind the scenes of how those people who are in charge of so much and how much they care about education was really refreshing, but also really rewarding. The principals meeting I was able to go to with all of the head principals in the district was really interesting to sort of get the background of who was there and what was happening, what the main highlights of things that were going on would be, and sort of to see that leadership piece. Again, was awesome to sort of be a fly in the wall there, and to see something that in the classroom I never would have been able to. Going through district policies and going through sort of those continuous involvements of how to be able to continue educational growth and things like that were really interesting. This specifically was the social media policy that the district put out, and sort of being able to talk about that for me to be able to not only dig through that, but be able to compare it with other districts and sort of legal statutes and see where we were was something that I thought was interesting and something that's going to affect us more and more in the future. And lastly, we were talking about advocating for resources, and there's a couple examples of both emails and individual forms that were filled out for guidelines for trying to get booster funds for individual programs. And going through that process was something that was really helpful and interesting. Let's transition over to the elementary level. Again, special thank you to Principal Jilka at Discovery, and I am so thankful to have someone who I think is just a world-class principal and someone who has helped me throughout this process. First is going through some mission statement comparisons of the elementary schools to the middle school to the high school. Sort of seeing that overall global vision of how the overall way in which we feel about educating, and sort of see not only how that could change, but also how globally it's so similar. I thought was something that was helpful. Again, we sort of feel so divided in the different sub areas, but I think when you go back and see what our main goals are and to see how similar they are, it's reassuring. Going through individual data at the elementary school level and different research data, this was specifically grant data, allowed me to sort of see where we're at and how teachers are trying to incorporate that data into their everyday teaching lives. And I thought that was really helpful as well. Here is Career Day at Discovery in the 5th grade building, and I was able to be a part of that. And I'm not sure if he gave permission for me to take a picture of him or not, but here it is. He'll see it now. And to sort of see Career Day and see how happy the kids were and how much joy they had in thinking about not only what they were doing inside of their educational spaces now, but where they wanted that to take them and what ideas and dreams and hopes that they had. Something that was amazing and refreshing to be a part of. Also creating staff expectation guides for these sub areas and looking through and cross comparing those were also really interesting as well. Going through different situations and different manuals on how to help students specifically and how to document different processes and dress codes. And I just thought that those different things, sort of real world implications of maybe case studies and things from the past were interesting and helpful. And even things like going through different teachers' areas and different buildings and seeing technology they had. Here's a 3D printer. And getting to make relationships with students and getting birthday cake from one of the students was something that was really cool and something that I was grateful to. Going into secondary, which is sort of my bread and butter, but I'm running out of time, is sort of seeing some highlights here. I have a great staff that I work with and one that I'll get to work with next year as an administrator in the building. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that and got to really share a lot of experiences. Including, obviously curriculum creation, communication documents, creating those more digital, putting them online, adding back and forth communication pieces with Google Docs and being able to go back and forth, acknowledging high ethical standards and creating, or this that was creating before. This would be looking at our pillars of character that we have in our own school and the ways that we want to push students, or going through grant data and looking at what individual needs are and socioeconomic status correlations. Going through adoptions of textbooks and doing interviews with educators and district level personnel and how those are going and how we can improve and how I can help facilitate that to students. That was ACT data and adoption, and creating laptop agreements and permission slip forms to help solve solutions or problems we've already been seeing. Just so many different things that were super helpful. Here I am stealing one of our administrators' offices for a day and going through and being the administrator, getting to get hands-on communication with students and parents and the administrative staff and the office staff and get to run through and handle those things and the responsibilities of that day-to-day, just learning so much throughout that. Again, thank you, Principal Rink, for letting me steal your office. Going through all different types of events and different athletic events and activities and getting to help not only be there, but set up and see students in other ways was terrific. This is different data and different information I had for interviews, both at Eisenhower and also at Mays High. And again, just so much thanks for all the things that I learned there as well. And then just all the days with going through in people's evaluations and just how amazing that was. So I had a blast, and I thank you all. And